the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week. And welcome back, folks. Welcome back to Business Story of the Week. I am your host, Joshua. And today's question is, what does it take to break through the barriers in a male-dominated field like urology? It's quite the kind of a left field question for today, but it's interesting because of our guest today, Dr. Martha Boone was one of the first 100 women board certified in urology in America. She practiced academic urology for 5 years, was in solo private practice of urology for 25 years, and has retired to write, of course. She has two novels, The Big Free and Mother Charity, which are loosely autobiographical about her time in surgery at Charity Hospital in New Orleans. She has written a non-fiction book as well, The Unfettered Urologist, which tells many things she never had time to tell her parents in 15 minutes office visit. I'm quite excited about this one. Of course, when we started off that question, Martha, uh, we are here to really start talking about how how your everything that you've done in life prior to being a urologist, now to being a writer, and everything else. But first, thank you for coming on here. How you're doing?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time for us to be able to chat a bit.
Absolutely. I'm quite excited, of course, to also, you know, get a little bit into your background, know your story, because quite literally the second name of the show is stories, and we love stories on this show. So, Dr. Boone, can you share with us first what inspired you to pursue a career in urology, especially during a time where there were very few women in that field, and how did you overcome that, and how did you start transitioning to being an author? Did you always know as a child that you were going to be an author? What is the story of Martha Boone?
So that's a lot of questions there in a line.
Mm,
When I was a kid, I liked to write. I always wrote to
mhm.
process my emotions, and mostly it was in the form of journal writing. If anything
Wow.
bad would happen or anything good would happen, I would write about it. And my brain always thought in story form. So whenever something would happen, within several hours, I would be adding to the story, just making up characters and making it bigger than it was. So I was kind of always a natural storyteller. That was the way my brain worked. And then as a child, I spent my summers at my grandparents' farm.
Mhm,
We lived in South Carolina, and
mm.
my grandparents' farm was one of the last self-sufficient farms in South Carolina. And so all the boys and all the girl cousins would gather there, and we were basically field hands. We worked in tobacco, we worked in cotton, we worked in corn,
Uh-huh.
soybeans. And so through that experience on the farm, I really learned how to work together, whether you're a male or a female. And I learned, about duty, and I learned about
Mhm,
hard work.
mhm.
On the farm, my grandfather didn't really care if you were a boy or a girl. If you were physically able to do the job, then you were expected to do it.
Wow.
Let's say the pig breaks out of the pen. Granddad's not looking to see, is a boy going to get it or a girl going to get it? He's like, whoever's the closest, the fastest, and the most physically adept needs to get the
Mhm,
pig. So I didn't grow up with a lot of ideas of one thing being a man's job and something else being a woman's job. And I think that
mhm.
helped me.
Ever since, you've always had that mindset of it's everyone is capable, boy or girl. And if you want to get, if you can get the job done, if you want to get it done, you step up to the plate. It doesn't matter. It really, I feel like, shaped your approach in life, especially coming into urology, so to speak, or really in any field, right? It takes a bit of grit and resilience. Could you talk to me or talk to us a little bit about your experience being a urologist, one of the first 100 women certified urology in America, and you practiced it for a long, long time, 25 years as well. Talk to us a bit about that experience.
So most people don't realize that urology is a surgical subspecialty. So you have to do
Mm.
surgery first, and then you do urology as a subspecialty of
Wow.
surgery.
Mhm.
And when I was a medical student, I really thought I was going to do family practice and I was going to join the Peace Corps and go work in
Oh, wow.
underserved areas. And
Uh-huh.
then when I rotated on surgery, I realized that I had this gift that, everything in surgery was easy to me, more so
Mm.
than a lot of the other kids that were in our class. And so then the professors started saying to me, hey, you're really good with your hands. Why don't you think about surgery?
Oh, that's
And so they
interesting.
send you on medical school through different types of rotations. And I really did not want the urology rotation. I wanted to be on the hand surgery rotation. But the
Uh-huh.
rotation filled up, and so they put me on urology as a student. And by the
Uh-huh.
end of the week, I was fascinated at how much I loved it because we did surgery on children. When kids are born and you can't quite decide what sex they are,
Hmm.
that's a urology
Hmm.
patient. We had cancer patients, we had young people, we had
Wow.
benign diseases, we had a lot of cancerous diseases. So it was fascinating.
Mhm.
And then one fateful day, I went in to see the chairman of urology and I said, I'm really interested in this. I think I want to be a urologist. And he
Wow.
looked across his desk and he said, we're not really ready for women in urology.
Whoa.
And that was a pivotal moment. I mean, no one would say
Uh,
anything like that these days. But, back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth,
mm,
when I was a young
mm.
woman, um, people would say things like that. And I left his office thinking, oh, well, you need some
Mm,
women then. If you don't
mhm.
have
There
any
you
and
go.
you don't want any, well, then that's just what you need. So then I was hell bent and determined that I was going to be a urologist. So it was kind of a pivotal moment.
That is very cool. I mean, exactly. I imagined you exactly, imagining exactly your reaction when you just, did you just, oh, you definitely need woman now. I am definitely going to pursue this now. You did not just say that. I love that. I love that reaction. And exactly. I imagine you having that reaction, especially the way you were raised, especially the mindset that you were put in. And it's not like, again, like you said, it was a different time back then, and now it's clearly more open. The fields are, the women are more accepted in all these fields, and seen as equals in a lot of them. But um, from the get go, wow! I mean, being told that we're not really ready for women, how did you tackle this and got them ready for women, really? And how were you able to overcome those obstacles?
Well, I think one of the things I don't know what age group your viewership is, but if it's younger people, one of the things I'd like for them to know is that a lot of times when something happens in your career that you perceive as bad,
Mm.
later in life you'll realize that that was the touchstone for you to be sent to wherever it is that you need to go. So I
Mhm.
really wanted to stay at my home medical school because I wanted to be there with my family.
Mhm.
But the place I got in was Tulane University, which ended up being a much better program. And it was better suited for me because Tulane has always been after excellence. They don't care what your race is or what your religion is or what your sex
Wow.
is or any of that. They just want
Mhm.
you to be excellent. So by not getting what I wanted, I got something better. And I
Wow.
ended up having some wonderful male mentors who realized that it was time for women to be at the table. And they were
Mhm.
also very astute in that they didn't treat me any different than they treated anyone else. And
Mhm.
so I quickly learned that if you do a good job, you're going to be okay. And there are always, for
Wow.
all of us, going to be people who are prejudiced against us for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's best pretty much just to ignore that. If you just focus on your work and make sure
Mhm.
that your work product is good, then
Mhm.
all of the good folks are going to be fine with you. And the ones who want to try to hinder your progress, you really can't change their mind because that's something that's going on with them that they have to work out for themselves. So I wouldn't waste a lot of energy on those things.
Wow, that's a great way. It's a very impressive mindset to have early on, of course, and to would help you get through all of that, barrier, so to speak, a really tough barrier of your time as well. But it's a great mindset to have even today, to not waste the time of how people perceive you and how people have an idea of you. Especially if you want it, you have to just go get it, right? Um, in your novels, you talk about it's loosely autobiographical about your time at Charity Hospital. It is the Big Free, titled "The Big Free in Mother Charity." Um, there you go. Wow, look at that. How did your experiences there shape you both as a surgeon and as a writer?
So it was my great honor to be part of Charity Hospital. It was one of the largest indigent hospitals for people who don't have insurance
Oh,
in America at the time.
oh, wow.
And it was extremely busy. It was almost like working in a MASH unit because we
Hmm.
had the crack wars, the drug wars were going on in New Orleans. And so we had just tons of young people that were involved in this drug culture who were coming in, with gunshot wounds to the chest and abdomen. So it was amazing training. But it
Hmm.
was also very humbling because we were working, 100-hour weeks, and you had to form a team. I mean, you couldn't do this by yourself. And so
Hmm.
it really taught me a lot about working with a team. And one of the great gifts of surgery is that every day you get to see the inside of the human body. I mean, most of us just walk around and we don't really appreciate the miracle that we're living in.
Hmm.
And so doing surgery and seeing all that dramatic stuff that went on really, really made me appreciate life. And also, I saw every day that 1 millimeter beneath the skin, we are all the same. So
Wow.
all these roles that we've assigned to ourselves and that cultures have assigned to us
I
and that the
love
world
that.
has assigned to us, it's all like a package. The gift is on the inside, and
Hmm.
just 1 millimeter beneath that surface, it's all pink.
Wow, of course, of
And,
course.
it's a very humbling thing to remember that
Hmm.
every day. And
Hmm.
so if anybody thought, they didn't want a woman urologist, I mean, I would just laugh it off because I would go, it's all pink, 1 millimeter beneath the skin. I'm just a pink person just like you.
That is hilarious. And of course, like again, a nice reminder, like you said, like we are all just the same. Uh, 1 millimeter underneath that skin, what it reveals is that we all run the same blood. We are all pink. I love that we are all pink. The Big Free and Mother Charity are of course both fiction books. And how is it? How is it more loosely autobiographical? Can you describe to us that a little bit? So it is some parts of it uh, are are stories during your time with Mother Charity. What was that like?
So, Mother Charity, my second novel, everything in here actually
Hmm.
happened. It happened to
Oh,
different people, different places, different hospitals, different times, but every
wow.
story is the same. And as I've gone around the country talking to groups about the books, it's ubiquitous, these hospital stories. So everybody goes, yes, that happened to me. Yes, that happened to me. Yes, that
Wow.
happened to me. So these
Wow.
are the kinds of things that happen in a crazy inner city, underfunded urban hospital.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
it's been interesting to see that people all across the country who've never even been to charity have heard of it and can relate to the stories.
Wow.
Bigger than
Okay.
life kind of place.
Wow, wow. Okay, well, of course, there's again these stories need to be told. Like, there's a reason why stories need to be told in general, because other people in the same field who has the same stories, similar stories, get to relate to it and get to feel like, wow, my story is finally being told. So it's great that, of course, there are, across the field, people get to relate to your own stories or the things that happened you know, in charity hospital and the things that you've written with your book at Mother Charity. Um, you have also written a nonfiction book. It's called The Unfettered Urologist. There you go. The Unfettered Urologist. What I never, I, First of all, I really love that subtitle there, that subheading. What I never got to tell or never had time to tell in a 15-minute office visit. And these offers, I understand the book offers what pearls of wisdom that you didn't have get to share during office visits. First off, why is it difficult to share this in an office visit? And can you discuss a key piece of advice from that book that you think is crucial for patients to know, and doctors and readers, actually, and our audience and listeners?
Yeah. So in America, both the patients and the doctors feel very frustrated because
Mm,
there's just not enough time in the day to do
mm,
everything we need to do. And a conventional doctor is limited by their license. So we have best practices, and an MD is basically a scientist.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so, if things are not proven by randomized, double blind, placebo controlled studies, then we
mhm,
aren't really licensed to recommend them.
mhm,
But when you
mhm,
practice as long as I did, I was blessed to have 35 years of meaningful work, which is just kind of amazing when I look back on it. But when you practice that long, you have intuition and you have experience
mhm,
and you have wisdom that's beyond just what you know from the science that you've learned.
mhm,
And so often, a patient would come to me with a cancer. And so I would get their x ray and I would tell them, here's what we recommend doing, which was based on what my governing bodies recommended. But then I also knew a lot about nutrition and supplements
mhm,
and alternative treatments. And I also, learned how much the mind controls the body. So a
mhm.
person who can calm themselves enough to go along with their therapy and stay in a positive mode, they will do a whole lot better than others. And so
Okay.
things like acupuncture and massage and even
Okay.
things like Tai Chi and yoga can
Wow.
greatly help heal the person while they go through conventional treatment. And so a lot of times we didn't have time to go into all those details.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
my book has a lot of things in there that are conventional medicine, but also unconventional or not
Wow. So
not
it's
conventional.
very okay. It's not like you're always. It's it's one thing to be able to tell uh, medical advice and what you know, of course, what you've learned, and the things that are needed for you to tell your patients then and there. But of course, there's also this other side of the curtain, so to speak, where underneath you get to do all these other things. You want to give them advice, but you really don't have time. It's not like you can tell them like, oh, you list out everything like acupuncture, meditation, yoga, and all that. I see now why there's not just enough time to explain all of this. And even if the patients come back and return multiple times, you're more focused on the more technical aspects and the primary aspects of what they are going through. I love that you are including how you say, I don't want to use the word alternative, but more like you said, unconventional medication or ways of dealing with their illnesses. Could you talk to us a little bit about that more? I want to dig into that a little bit more. What are more of these unconventional approaches that you talk about in the book, and that you wish your patients know, that you have the time to tell your patients?
Yeah. A common problem that we see in urology are recurrent urinary tract infections in women. And,
Mm, mm,
billions of dollars are spent every year on that. And there are preventative measures that women can use to really greatly decrease the number of infections that they have per year. And
mhm,
one of them is to use particular cranberry supplements. And all
mhm,
the
mhm.
through the years that I've tried a lot of different things, I have in the book several things that absolutely do work. And
Mhm,
these are things that are not terribly expensive. And all of us need to be worried about not using too many antibiotics. I mean, we need to be good stewards of antibiotic use because what happens is the bacteria are much smarter than we are. So we give them an antibiotic and they can morph into something that's stronger. And if we
mhm,
keep taking antibiotics, then pretty soon we have a superbug that we can't treat. And
mm.
so in the book, I have a lot of detailed instructions about how to prevent urinary tract infections. So it will decrease the amount of antibiotics that the person takes.
That is
And
very
you have
cool.
to be sure it's the right kind of cranberry supplement.
That is very cool. Cranberry supplements. It is quite inventional, but unconventional rather. But also, it makes sense. That's why I believe it's a common, what, like they call it like a home remedy when it comes to your urinary tract and anything related to that. Cranberry, just drink cranberry. But I love that you also tackle on that, and you talk to this to your patient. I really want to know more, Dr. Martha. I mean, we have more than 15 minutes on this. What are other things that you wish you could tell your patients that you didn't have time in 15 minutes?
Well, one of the things is I think that we all communicate on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes patients ignore their intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's some kind of knowing. I mean, they're the ones that live in that body
Mm-hmm.
and they have some idea of A, what's wrong with them, and B,
Mm-hmm.
what might work for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would tell the patients never ignore that. If you go to a doctor and for any reason you just don't like them, I mean, even if two of your friends said, oh, this is the best doctor ever, but you get this overwhelming feeling, this is not the person for me, that's all you need to know. And so
Mm-hmm.
you want to get another opinion. If a
I see.
doctor that you trust recommends something that just doesn't sound right to you, you want to take a moment and
Mm-hmm.
step back and consider why it might not be the right thing for you. Because we do
Mm-hmm.
have a knowing about our bodies, that goes beyond the data that we can accumulate through science.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So uh, it's one thing to receive medical advice, but again, I love that you said that it is us living in this body. It is us up to us to trust that intuition and to be able to communicate that to our doctors, and to our therapists and whoever. And I think it's important. Communication is important, but more than that, communication with your own body, how you're feeling, what you're really going through, and to be able to effectively express that, and to have an environment where you get to express that as well. And you've mentioned that this is, you know, kindness in medicine, right? You've mentioned that kindness is the best response to almost anything, especially,
Exactly.
especially, I love that, by the way. I really love that, especially here in medicine, so to speak. How has this philosophy impacted your career in medicine and interaction with patients, but also life in general?
I think that when I left my family to go out into the world, I basically knew everything I already needed to know to be successful. I was taught that most people are doing the best that they can on any given day, so you want to try to give people grace.
Mhm.
I was taught to give people respect until they give you a reason not to respect them.
Of course.
I was taught that, the best answer to just about anything is the kindest answer. And, when I
Yeah.
was working with all men and we were trying to integrate women into what we were doing, it took a sense of humor. I mean, I was
Mhm.
raised to that most of life is funny.
Mhm.
Even the most serious things, you can have some dark humor around. And so I would
Mhm.
try to go to laughter instead of anger.
I love
And in
that.
dealing with others, I always try to remember that a lot of times when a person is expressing anger, it's almost always fear.
Mm.
So if someone is coming at me with anger, if I can calm down enough to try to listen to what they're saying and try to hear whatever the fear component is in there, that I have a chance to be much more successful, in my communication with them. And, finally, my family taught me that the best thing to do is to forgive everyone for everything. Even if
Mm.
someone has done something terrible to you, you don't want to
Mhm.
use your psychic energy and rob your own creativity by putting your energy and your focus on whatever they've done to you.
Wow.
So, forgiving everybody everything, I think, is a very powerful creative tool.
Wow. I love that. I mean, of course, it takes some bravery, it takes some courage to forgive others as well. But I love how you also say there is creativity in there, and I love it because it holds you back, so to speak, right? If you're not able to express all these things, and I love how you said that these values you already learned even before you left home, and we try our hardest every day and always try to meet everyone with grace. And it's amazing and it's lovely because it's clear how this can impact your career in medicine and how it has impacted, of course, your approach in life. And it's no surprise that you talk the way you do about others, the way you do about your patients, and you just want the best for everyone. That's why you wrote all the books that you wrote, and I think it's a lovely path that you have taken. And I'm just honored to have you on here and to have you share all of that, Martha. I'd love to give you this opportunity. Where can we find you? Where can we connect with you? Of course, we have your website, marthaboone.com, Boone. Talk to us a little bit more about that. We'd love to connect with you. Where can we find you?
So I think my website's probably the best place. There's a section in there where you can enter your email, and I
Mhm.
only send about 4 emails a year. So don't imagine that if you do that, that I'm going to be trying to communicate with you every day, because I'm not. And that basically would let you know if I'm giving a talk or I have a new book or something like that that's
Mhm.
available. I try to do a little bit on Facebook and on X. I haven't gotten on Instagram, and I don't love social media. So
Mm.
if you are interested in having me for a speaking engagement or a podcast or something like that, you can find me on LinkedIn or on my website. You can send me an email.
All right, fantastic. To all our audience and listeners out there, make sure to check out Dr. Martha Boone's website. Connect with her, let her know how much you appreciate all her insights in this episode. I'm certainly, I feel the lovely energy and the wisdom that has been shared with us today. Dr. Martha, one last bit of wisdom, one last bit to share to bring this to us close. What would it be? Take us home.
Would it be okay if I read my very favorite quote?
Oh, please, let's go.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So this is T.S. Eliot, and it's, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time."
Wow, what a
I
lovely
love
quote.
that.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I'm not going to expound on it. Let's simmer on that. And to all our audience and listeners, I hope you love. I request also them to simmer on that quote. Put this on a lovely way to close out. Dr. Martha, thank you so much for this episode. Thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate your time.
I truly appreciate your time as well, Dr. Martha. And to all our audience and listeners out there, thank you for listening to the show. See you on the next one.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.